Breaking news now. Do you persist in wanting to back Ukraine? Companies that won't leave Russia should not be supported. After Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine in 2014, Putin ordered an invasion of the country that year. That invasion is now 14 months old. Soldiers on both sides of the conflict and thousands of innocent civilians in Ukraine have died. Back in the United States, the blue and yellow flags of Ukraine were flown from rooftop to rooftop in support of the country that has become a victim of Putin's deadly invasion. No matter how justifiable a war may be, as it drags on, the public loses interest and becomes distracted from the news of the day. That appears to be the case now that war coverage has become routine. Despite Republican opposition, a March poll found that 59% of Americans still back the United States' provision of weapons and financial support to Ukraine. That might be a response to Trump's statement in response to the survey that Ukraine is not a vital interest of the United States. Overall, the U.S. position on Ukraine has the backing of 79% of Democrats and 60% of independents. It's a question of how we can aid the Ukrainians in their struggle for independence from Putin's rule. Most of us just watch the news to see who is winning the war, though some Americans have joined Ukrainian soldiers in defense of the country or donated to Ukrainian relief organizations. Many people, including American businessman, author, and activist Bill Browder, have spent their entire lives opposing Putin and his iron grip on his country's population. For those interested in learning more about how Putin stays in power through the manipulation of international law enforcement agencies like Interpol and the use of oligarchs to hide his wealth overseas, the author's books, Red Notice, and Freezing Order, are indispensable. If you're wondering how you can help the Ukrainian army, Browder has a good suggestion. U.S. sanctions after the 2022 invasion were meant to damage Putin's ability to conduct the war by crippling the Russian economy and encouraging the Russian people to overthrow the Putin regime, so the United States asked American companies to withdraw their operations from Russia. U.S. requests for businesses to leave Russia were met with resistance. While over 1,000 businesses left the country, others stayed or said they would but never left. The United States sends the wrong message about its dedication to supporting Ukraine and punishing Putin's Russia for its aggression if its citizens remain in the country. A movement is afoot to deal with the straggler corporations that stayed in Russia by arming American consumers with the knowledge they need to aid in the defense of the Ukrainian people. To aid pro-democracy forces in Russia in deposing Putin and sending him to criminal trials at The Hague, the Moral Ratings Agency was established after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. It monitors businesses to see if they are active in Russia, alerting customers to those they should avoid purchasing from. Nestle, Microsoft, Johnson & Johnson, PepsiCo, Procter & Gamble, and Unilever are all named as companies that stayed by the Moral Ratings Agency. Consumers may not be aware of all of Unilever's products that violate U.S. sanctions, but the website of the Moral Ratings Agency lists Ben & Jerry's, Breyers, Dove, Hellmann's, and Lipton as examples of Unilever brands that should be avoided. The Yale School of Management keeps tabs on both companies that have and have not left Russia. Yale Chief Executive Leadership Institute President Jeffrey Sonnenfeld called the blacklist of those who refused to leave Russia the Hall of Shame. If only our elected officials would keep beating the drum about how we can stop supporting businesses that refuse to leave Russia. In deference to Trump supporters who are enamored with his love affair with Putin, one of Trump's favorite autocrats, our Idaho congressional delegation may be hearing from some of the 47% of Republicans who do not support U.S. military aid to Ukraine. There is complete silence from Idaho's 4-person delegation on the topic of Ukraine. Mike Simpson and Russ Fulcher, both of Idaho's congressional delegation, have avoided discussing the conflict in Ukraine on their official websites. It is not easy to find information on the websites of Senators Jim Risch and Mike Crapo about their support of Senate resolutions declaring Russian actions in Ukraine as genocide. Although they both signed a letter to Vice President Joe Biden urging him to approve the transfer of jet fighters to Ukraine, this seems to be more of a Republican attempt to reprimand Biden over a minor aspect of the war effort. A revival of the fighting spirit shown by most Americans in the early weeks and months of the war is what America needs at this crucial moment of the Ukrainian counteroffensive. The Moral Ratings Agency and the Yale Chief Executive Leadership Institute have taken the first step by publicly shaming companies that refuse to leave Russia. The next logical step is for us to stop supporting the businesses that are enabling the Russian economy to fund its invasion of Ukraine. Whether authoritarianism takes hold in Ukraine and spreads to other countries, or whether democracy triumphs and sways countries on the cusp of authoritarian rule in the opposite direction, may depend on the outcome of this war. Learn which companies have not earned our loyalty by visiting the websites of the Moral Ratings Agency and the Yale Chief Executive Leadership Institute. Then let's only support businesses that aren't on Yale's Hall of Shame, and that defend Ukrainian democracy by doing business with them. From 2003 until 2018, Bob Kustra presided over Boise State University in the role of president. He has a bi-weekly column in the Idaho Statesman and hosts Reader's Corner on Boise State Public Radio. He spent 10 years in the Illinois legislature before becoming lieutenant governor for 2 terms.